The key thing is that Shopify's position on AI is it is a multiplier for human productivity, right? So everything that we're building into the Shopify admin, hopefully it's fairly obvious that what it allows users to do is go faster, do more all by themselves with the support of the AI native capability. And Sidekick's a great example of that.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy and leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by Shopify, and we're actually talking to Shopify today. So this is the big biannual release around Shopify Edition, summer 2025. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Ben Homer, who's a senior solutions engineer at Shopify. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm in sort of sunny, slightly sometimes rainy Exeter in the southwest UK.
I do love Exeter. Actually, home to one of my favourite Shopify agencies in Swanky. I'm doing some work with them, a couple of projects at the moment. So this is exciting. Editions is literally hot off the press, just been launched in UK. We are literally a few hours after the public release of it. And I'm really happy. Thank you for taking the time to come on and do this. For those of you listening, there'll be people who are on Shopify, people considering Shopify, people who just want to keep track of the market, what's going on. Shopify's R&D budget is obviously significant and it keeps releasing lots of functionality, and that's either new or incremental. And what we're trying to do is there's a lot of information that gets shared about here's a new feature. We're not doing that. We want to talk about some of the key things that land and what it means strategically in terms of Shopify's product direction, but also from a merchant point of view, what are the values and benefits of these things and what's the impact going to be and how this links to kind of, I guess, broader trends of the where e-commerce market is going. So before we get into, we pulled out 4 main themes, Ben, which is the new theme templating and the Horizon concept, markets updates and market structure for international and multi-store, point of sale, and Sidekick for the Gen AI and tools that help improve the ability to run and manage stores. But part of the press release, because all vendors like their terminology, is that this last one was about the unglamorous bit, doing like the under the hood, getting the fundamentals right. Now you're talking about declarative commerce. So can you, from a strategic lens point of view, why is Shopify now talking about declarative commerce? What does it actually mean?
I think that for me, the key thing that has changed astronomically is the capability of AI and what it means for the future of everything, but specifically for this commerce. So for me, I suppose it's around the fact that increasingly the way we interact with software and the way we interact with technology will change from coding, manually writing code. It will change from going through settings and tick boxes and so on, and will actually just change to natural language, spoken, maybe typing, and it is how you will interact with software like Shopify. So for me, that's a big one. That's why it's a theme at the moment. Obviously, 2023 was the kind of start of this, not the start, but the point at which we all remember, oh my goodness, AI, there's something in AI that is actually going to change everything. And that journey has continued. And this is just, I suppose, another stake in the ground for Shopify going, like, we're all in on that. We're all in on the benefits it can bring for businesses. And here are a whole bunch of cool things that you can now do within Shopify using native AI, as well as building custom AI solutions on Shopify.
Yeah, it is interesting. There are so many different stats flying around about the degree to which different generations are using AI-based tools, whether it's ChatGPTs to access information and even down to proper product discovery and product interrogations. So yeah, this is so let's start with that. So let's start on the theme piece and the evolution, because if I take the client lens and the businesses that myself and Paul talk to, one of the biggest stumbling blocks for people is the speed at which they can execute content strategies on the site, how they interact with page builders, whatever you want to call them, page builders, CMSs, their ability to meaningfully use layouts and sections and be able to create new ones, and the time frame around involving developers when somebody who's not code literate requires somebody to do some building for them, and wanting to be able to do more and more self-serve. And that's really aligned with what you're talking about. So do you want to talk people through the new Horizon theme? What are the key changes, and how is it going to help e-commerce teams to go further in their execution without development involvement?
And I think it's worth just taking a step back, because I suppose you and I have been through, we've seen a lot of evolution around Shopify front end and themes and so on. Horizon is a suite of themes called the Horizon themes. I think there are 10 of them. But the key thing is the latest technology that they're leveraging, right? So it's a whole new front end foundation that Horizon's built on. So as a theme out of the box, it is performant, it is modern, and so on. It is also then leveraging a whole bunch of new stuff that Liquid can do, that Shopify can do within the online store editor, right? So that, I think, is worth delineating the two, because importantly, this isn't a moment necessarily where a business needs to go, we need to throw everything out and start again if we want to leverage Horizon functionality, though it could be. But it's also, in terms of a new business starting to build on Shopify, or if you're reskinning your front end or whatever it is, it's an amazing place to start again. And it gives a lot of power. So that's my first, I suppose, my first caveat. I hope that was kind of mildly clear. Maybe it wasn't. But I think I wanted to kind of delineate the two, that there's the Horizon theme, but there's no exclusivity within that in terms of the functionality it offers.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point. So I tell you, let's come back to that, because a big question people have already on Shopify will be, okay, I've got a theme. Does that mean I now have to sack it off and rebuild? So let's come back to it after we talk about some of that incremental functionality, because the one that I'm most interested in, and hearing you explain how it works, let's give it an example, is around the AI block generation, because one of the big challenges in teams is development bandwidth, or even budgets with agencies to do stuff and get them prioritized, where a content team might want 4 or 5 different blocks or layouts, and actually they're going to have to wait a couple of months for that because there's other priorities. So can you talk through what AI block generation can do, and let's maybe look at an example of the type of block it could generate for someone?
Sure. I mean, this is the sky's the limit on the AI block generation. I think just so at the moment, right, you can, we've got there's loads of AI tooling like Cursor and so on, all sorts that can develop themes and essentially then put it into Shopify. Whereas now with AI block generation, what you can do within a theme is get Sidekick or get Shopify Magic to generate you a custom block based on your text input, and that will give you a preview code snippet that you can then say, yeah, I'm happy with what this provides, and that then inserts it into the theme, and that gives you the settings to then manage the content and put it within your sections across the rest of the front end. So that bit is really exciting. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how that enables content teams to go faster. The other bit that adds to this as well is the fact that now we can nest blocks within a section. Now, a section is like a layout component within a Shopify front end that you can kind of add across different parts of the site and manage content within. And then within that, you have blocks, which are the components that build up that section, that layout. And now you can start to nest those even further, meaning that you can go, actually, historically, I've got this layout component that is 4 images that link to category pages. But actually, the team now want some CTAs along the bottom. That's not there currently. But with this new functionality, with nested blocks, you can add a block within the online store editor that is for a CTA that adds it into that layout. And you could then have that without having to you spin up a whole new bit of code.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser, and Glossier all have in common. They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the interesting thing for content teams is sometimes there are non-complex layout requirements where actually if you don't have any knowledge of how to manage the liquid templates and the overall theme coding configuration, you can't do that because a little bit of knowledge we all know is dangerous. If you try and make set changes into specific templates, you can end up breaking the theme, which is not good, obviously. So the ability to self-serve is very, very interesting. I'm going to be intrigued to see the use cases that come out, like how people start using it. The other bit I wanted to explore a bit further is block copying, because the speed at which people can use repeated elements within pages and other journeys on sites is being able to like improve that efficiency of replicating is really helpful. So do you want to talk through I guess how that would work for a merchant, what the benefit will be?
Sure. So it's another area where we're just enabling content teams to go faster. The core concept is you have a copy and paste button for a layout or for a component within your front end. So instead of having to go back, if you wanted to add the same component across multiple parts of the site at the moment, you'd have to kind of spin up the skeleton of it in each part and flesh out the content. Whereas now you can make your edits, build out that one component, and then copy and paste it across different points. So incremental productivity improvement, right? Which add up, as we all know.
Yeah, exactly. That's the copy and paste bit is one of the things that native page builders has always had a weakness compared with true CMSs. So that's a really nice addition. I have clients who always want to have reusable elements. So a great example, I think, is an FAQ block, where you might have exactly the same FAQ block needed on multiple pages. Now, you can do it through a template, but you often have different pages that don't inherit the same template, and therefore just being able to copy and paste a layout on a block is really useful. So block nesting, which is the one I was where earlier when we were chatting, I got my head around partially, but I know that there'll be more to it that I haven't quite got. So this is really about extensibility. So if I give the context of what happens sometimes now, where you might have a particular layout built and it's good, but then you realize it's not quite as functional as you want, and you might want a different version of it, and then you have to go back and go, right, okay, well, I need to update that, but then it updates that layout in its entirety, which means wherever you then use it, it's got all that added functionality, content, whatever it is within. So from my understanding, the block nesting now enables you to go to an existing layout you got on a particular page and specifically extend that with additional data. So do you want to talk through maybe the application of that?
Sure. I suppose at its core, what it does is it further componentizes, is that a word? Further componentizes the front end and allows you to reuse those smaller components across more parts of your storefront, right? So I think on the Editions homepage, we've got some really cool animations and videos of users building stuff within the editor. And in the example, there is a new arrivals product carousel, which initially was just images, product title, price. And then using nested components, the operator is able to go in and add components that add in color swatches, and then also component that adds reviews, star across each of the products within that carousel. And you can then drag it around to reorder it and so on. So, and I suppose the application here is that rather than, we kind of talked about the scenario where historically you'd have a business that had a custom theme or an off-the-shelf theme, and there were maybe 20 preset sections within that, and they were rigid. In some ways, they are rigid. If you wanted to do exactly this bit of functionality historically, you'd need to duplicate that and have coding completed to add in those two, the swatch piece and the review stars. And then you'd have 21 sections that were, increasing your overall code base management and complexity and so on. Rudimentary example, but probably helpful to visualize it. Now, because of the componentization, right, this nested theme block thing, you can just go in and on the specific area that you want to, you can add in new components.
Yeah, I like that because configurability of particular content layouts is really important, because you might have a core piece. So I had this once on a client website where it was a image plus text plus CTA, but there were times when certain elements need to be turned off and on, whether it was heading, subheading, whether there was one or two images, and you suddenly realize that you either build like 16 different layouts, which you're right, from a code overload point of view, the maintenance is just not what you'll do, or you build configurability and that flexibility to decide which version of those components you need in a particular page, journey, etc. So I really, really like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose there were some ways of doing some of this before, where like if you built it so that the component could cope with if the field was left blank, the layout would adjust and so on. So this helps negate the need to do that kind of thing. The other piece that we've rolled out, and I need to get the terminology right, I always forget exactly what we call things, but is conditional settings. So within the no-code editor, within the online store editor, there are, you have your layout, your section, your component, and within that are all of the settings which the user can manage. What we can now do with conditional settings is you can say, hide all of these unless this part is chosen or filled in, or this tick box is clear, or whatever it is. And what it means is from a user's perspective, it just makes the whole thing much more neat. Now condenses it all down and just makes it a much nicer user experience, because you're not hit with, here are the 30 fields that you need to populate. You're hit with, here are the 5 that are relevant.
Yeah.
And depending on the options that you move through, you might see more settings that you can fill in. So there's a lot of flexibility there for theme builds, I think.
Yeah, the UI interactions are really, really important for people being able to meaningfully use editors. So that's an important development. Let's come back to that question about, I'm a merchant. I've used a theme. I've built it. There's some customization. I've got all my layouts set out. I've had some custom ones built, and I'm really happy. Actually, I want to tap into this additional capability. I want the AI block generation. I want the block copying. What do I need to do? And what's the impact? Where does a merchant need to bring technical support in, because they don't want to be breaking what they currently got or know whether it's not compatible?
Yeah, and I suppose you have 3 options as a business user there. One is you do nothing and you don't get the new functionality. But this is really important because there's no forced upgrade here.
Yeah,
right. Backward compatibility. So there's no kind of, your front end will break unless you do this. As far as I'm aware, because we did a sort of major foundational update called Online Store 2.0 a few years ago as well, I think in 2021, if memory serves. And at that point, there were kind of a whole load of wholesale functionality improvements that came to the online store editor. My understanding is that people who never made that upgrade it's still completely functional on Shopify's online store. So there's kind of backward compatibility. So option 1 is, you're fine there. Option 2 is there is a manual. If you have a custom front end, or if you've customized an existing front end and you don't want to start from scratch, as it were, there is an upgrade path which requires development to kind of tap into the latest bits of functionality. So the AI block generation, the nested blocks, conditional settings, and all the other bits and pieces that we've released. So there is a technical upgrade path that you could scope out and consider. And then the third option, which is always worth keeping in the mix, I think, is this a refresh point, right? Maybe you don't change your front end design, but you start from a new foundation because technology has moved on. So one of the reasons the Horizon theme is going to really help a lot of businesses is it's the whole foundation of how the front end is built is very, very modern and leveraging latest functionality. So think performance, all of these kind of things. So it might be a time to go, right, clean slate. Let's figure out, let's start from that front end. Let's see how far we can get with configuration without development customization. And of course, with all of the stuff we've talked about, that's now a lot further than you could have before. And then maybe if there are very bespoke elements, you have those custom developed into the new starting theme. So it is either option 2 or 3 to get the new functionality. There is effort required.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice. I think that the key thing is you don't have to. It's choice, and actually that choice can be made at any point that you want. Now, I know that there is an announcement around. We're not going to talk about it much today because the details are not there. But there's an announcement coming around building AI shopping agents and functional or frameworks to enable to do that. And we're going to share. What we're going to do is we're going to share more detail when more is available in our upcoming newsletter. So, for the purposes of time today, I want to focus into things where there are there's more detail in the announcements. So let's go to markets next. Markets has been a big area for investment in the roadmap, and there's lots of incremental functionality coming out. I think it would be really useful to hear your perspective on how has the architecture and the structure around markets changed, and what are the benefits that that's having in terms of being able to manage multiple markets meaningfully.
Yeah, and so I realized I've been building on and in and around Shopify for sort of coming on 8 years now, which is not as long as a lot of people, but it means I've seen a good few iterations of Shopify. One of the key things in the journey for me is that internationalization has always been a hot topic, particularly for businesses in Europe, obviously. And Shopify's answer historically to internationalization was expansion stores, right? Spin up a separate Shopify store for each of at one point, each of the currencies you wanted to serve in, certainly each of the business entities and each of the bank accounts you wanted to pay out in, and then maybe also additional ones if you have specifically important, contextualization or personalization needs, right, to different customer segments or whatever it is. Over the last many years, but accelerating over the last couple of years, we've just been incrementally knocking over the forcing factors that have meant businesses have had to choose expansion stores and building in single store native internationalization capability. And the latest market stuff that we've just rolled out is another major step that, to be honest, at this point, there are still and always will be a few reasons why businesses need to go down the expansion store route. And actually often operationally, that makes the most sense for them. But what we've certainly seen is there are astronomically fewer forcing factors or reasons that you only have expansion stores as the option than there used to be. And so the markets update for me, that's another big one. So key things like GA now is multi-entity selling. So the ability to sell from multiple business entities internationally from within a single Shopify store, as well as multi-currency payout. So the ability to pay out in multiple currencies within a single business entity. So if you have a Euro bank account and a GBP bank account or whatever it is. But then there's also a whole load of kind of UI updates that make the concept of managing different markets way easier if you have lots and lots of them, as well as key bits of additional functionality.
Yeah, fantastic. I think anything that simplifies multi-store management, and the bit that I'm really excited by is the inheritance piece, because there are often times when there is so much similarity between two stores, and I see this in European stores when people are UK and they're expanding to Europe and they've got multiple stores, and so much is similar apart from translation, but then there are a few elements of local differences that you need, but you don't want to keep recreating things in multiple versions of a store. So I really like that. Looking forward to getting into that in a bit more detail.
It's quite a neat, and I think there's a lot that kind of speaks to Shopify's philosophy and how we build stuff, where that's a little, I suppose, a little nuance that we didn't need to be built, but it's the kind of thing that's really annoying, right? Like your example that you talked about, where there's maybe one minor difference between markets, you don't have the inherit piece. So therefore you have to manually set up every aspect that you've already set up once before again to just have that one slight difference. And I think there will always be areas of software, or probably always be areas of software that are a bit fiddly at times, but it's just quite nice that we try to focus on reducing that as much as possible. Inheritance is a good example of that.
Yeah, excellent. Anything else you think that we need to focus on that's of interest? Because I know we were talking about like B2B and multiple international markets, and therefore being able to have different store designs. Is there anything you want to do, like pull out specifically within that?
Yeah, I mean that's a big one, right? Where at the moment, or if you think, I don't know, 3 hours ago as we record, with Shopify, you could have native within a single store. You could have B2B capability, and it was a separate market, which would allow you to have a separate storefront layout and so on. But importantly, there was just one B2B market. And that meant that if you, for example, have B2B customers from a single store who are both in Germany and the UK, you couldn't necessarily contextualize to them or localize to them as much as you ideally would be able to. Now, with the new markets UI, the big unlock is that you can have individual B2B, individual retail markets as well. So that means that you can really go to town on localization way more than you could before. And I suppose that also narrates why it was so important that there was the UI overhaul. It's really neat the way the team have come up with it, where it's sort of it's a cascading tabular kind of view of how you.
Yeah, I like that from a B2B point of view, because the nature of the business customers you work with can vary from market to market depending on your distribution model. So you might have a very consumer-based purchasing set in one country, but a very traditional, more formal business groups, and therefore the UX or the feature, the functionality you will have can vary significantly. So that's definitely interesting. And we all know that the focus on B2B commerce is one of the big growth areas for investment at the moment is pretty significant. So that's markets. Our third strategic area we want to pull out is point of sale, the POS. I've looked at this on a few projects recently and I've been impressed with the capabilities as they roll out. So let's tease out what is new and again, what the impact is. So I know that the two that we were talking about, Bros, is about ship and carry out and like the branded customer reviews. But the one seems small, but I think it's a really good benefit to both customers and businesses is refund to store credit capability within the app now. That's been something that people have wanted for a long time. When there are situations where customer can't be refunded to payment type, maybe it's outside of like the policy window for giving a traditional refund, but you want to keep customers shopping within the store and not like annoy them. So refund store credit is always something that store teams want.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing to add. Agree. It's good to see.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is the great thing about this. Why I love these conversations. Sometimes it's just about getting stuff people need shipped, and that no more fanfare. It's done. So let's talk about the ship and carry out and split delivery methods, because this is something I think that is going to be an interesting one for you to talk through and what it does and what the benefits will be.
Sure. So take the example, customer walks in to a retail store, they pick up 4 items, 3 of them, they have the right size in their hands, 1 of them, they have the wrong size. They go to the till and they say, do you have the right size of this? The store operator can check inventory within the store and of course the inventory across the rest of the business. They can say, no, we don't have it in store. I'm really sorry. However, if you'd like, I can get that shipped to your home. At the moment, with Shopify POS, you have the choice of either you do two split orders, where you do one where the customer can carry out those 3 items and take them home today, and then do another order where the customer has that 4th item shipped to their home. Or the second option would be you just ship all of it to home and the customer walks out with nothing in the moment. So some of the time that's fine, but a lot of the time that's not ideal at all. With this kind of the new split and carry out in one checkout, the store operator can actually just go ahead and split out the order to have some items as carry out. They can take them, those 3 items, they can take them away now. And the other one, they can have shipped to home from the warehouse or however you've got it set up at a later date, allowing the customer to do all of that in a single transaction. So much nicer customer experience and also a much nicer store operator experience to them.
Yeah, excellent. That's really nice. Just anything that gives in-store teams flexibility to service customers to reduce the number of people who end up leaving. Because we all know that some people go, oh, I'll go and place the order online. But their percentage of those never do. And then they've disappeared because as soon as they left the store, you're out of sight and out of mind. So I really like that. One which is, I guess it's probably less exciting from a functional point of view, but it's nice from the business's control point of view, is branded customer views and the ability to align that interaction, that interface with brand controls. So from what I've understood, it's about brand colors in the checkout, helping that POS feel, I guess, more aligned with online or where other digital journey points exist. Is there anything specific to pull out on that, or is it more just about that design control?
Well, I mean, on the design piece, yes, everything you said about the customer branding, and that's brilliant. I think a lot of businesses will find that really, really valuable. And it's 2 areas, right? It's the terminal, if you have a piece that feeds back to the customer where they can see what's being added to cart and pay and so on, as well as if you're using tablet on the lock screen and that kind of thing. So any devices that are just left on the lock screen in the store can show branding. But the other piece that's worth calling out is that there's been a total UI overhaul. So it feels the whole Shopify POS interface has been redesigned, feels much fresher, feels much more, I suppose, even more intuitive, snappier, and I suppose just ready for the next era of commerce.
Excellent. So now we're on to our 4th pillar, and I think this is probably an area we can do a lot of chat about, because Gen AI, everyone talks about it. I know you said it at the start. There seems to be an acceleration of realizing that this isn't just another buzzword. The practical use cases are there, and actually people really want tools that improve their efficiency but help them make smarter business decisions. And especially in SMEs that are running lean teams, they don't have massive teams who are like data analysts, scientists, people who've got the time to crunch numbers, come up with like proactive recommendations. Having something that can interpret data and guide them or answer questions and give them info. And Sidekick was launched, and it keeps iterating. And I know now that in the latest editions, you've announced a voice chat and screen share. So do you want to give us the Shopify view of what these do, what you can get from them at the moment, and what the intended benefits are?
Yeah, sure. I think to start with intended benefit, because it aligns with, I suppose, Shopify's philosophy on AI, most of which, all of which is captured in the leaked Toby memo that we all got sent a few weeks ago, and it then surfaced on LinkedIn and went everywhere. For me, the key thing is that Shopify's position on AI is it is a multiplier for human productivity, right? So everything that we're building into the Shopify admin, hopefully it's fairly obvious. So what it allows users to do is go faster, do more all by themselves with the support of the AI native capability. And Sidekick's a great example of that. So Sidekick launched and you could ask it for help. It had access to help documents and so on within Shopify. It started to be able to do things like you say to it, I could build a 10% discount code for this customer segment. Please, could you do it for me? It would think about it, and yes, here you go. Do you want to preview it? It has in the last few weeks, and it's got astronomically smarter. So multi-step reasoning, more interfaces across Shopify as a platform. And then there's the new features as well, right? Where you can have a voice interaction. So you talk to it, it will talk back to you, and screen share. So you can do things like you could say, you could turn on, you could call Sidekick, right? It's AI assistant within the admin and say, I'm stuck on this screen. I don't know what to click. I'm trying to do this, this, and this. And Sidekick can see where you see your screen because you're sharing it at the same time. And then it can help you and guide you through having all of the references that it has to help documentation, broader context across, I suppose, all the millions of Shopify merchants and so on as well. So it's quite a game changer, I think.
Yeah, so I have this a lot when, I know the Shopify interface pretty well, but I don't know it as well. I don't know it as well as you and people who are using it day in, day out. But every single project I work on with clients, I help and guide them to do stuff where someone's forgotten how to do X on a product, or where do I find the meta object for that? And the thought of having a assistant where you can say, can you open the meta object for X, or oh God, I need to edit a product meta field, or I need to find this part of text in the system. I get that so much with system setting text, and it's like, where do I edit this, or where do I translate it? There are so many little things where you either have a massive document, or you go do an online search and use the help thing, or you just go and ask a Sidekick and say, get me there really quickly. Yeah. So I really love the idea of all those things where we always forget those little shortcuts, and they go, right, there we go. I've just saved myself 3 minutes of research.
Yeah. Yeah. And it of course, at the same time as being able to help with all of that, it also then can do massive data crunching for you and help you with industry trends and analysis and so on. We're actually seeing usage increase a lot. We're seeing businesses, some of the biggest businesses on Shopify are using this as well. So I think that's the thing that I've been really, I suppose it's just quite interesting to observe. Like, there's been a real tipping point where this is now a very, very powerful bit of kit within Shopify, and will just continue to get better. And it helps business users of all sizes of business go faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. I guess the great thing about this is, over time, same with Shopify Flow and other flow builders and other platforms, is you have a tool, you start using it for like repeat things that you do, but then you discover additional use cases that help add incremental efficiency into your day-to-day working. I like the idea of the data piece is quite nice, actually, being able to get quick answers, where you don't have to then go in and find a report, look through the data, make a decision.
And because it can access Shopify QL, right? So it can spit custom reports for you as well, and help you think about. So you could say, I need to be able to present this, or I need to be able to report back on this. What kind of reports would typically be used, and can you go and build them for me?
Yeah. Yes, that's very nice, because it's not an exciting thing to do when you have to, especially when you're having to build a custom report for somebody else, another stakeholder. You know the value in it and you want to help them out, but when you're busy, having the ability to execute that quicker rather than it manually is very useful. The next bit around Sidekick that I saw that was interesting was image generation. So evolution from ability to do basic editing, like backgrounds of images, to creating new images for things like marketing material or even like product photography. So what are the use cases that Shopify's built this in mind for?
I think what we've done with a lot of stuff here is bring into Shopify admin and into where business users are day to day, stuff that at the moment you might have in a very fragmented, so where you might have had 20 tabs open in your browser, one of them being an AI image generation tool, where you separate subscription and so on. We're wrapping more and more into Shopify, so it's all in the same place. Long term, think of the use case as well with the kind of idea that Sidekick has context on your brand. It has context on the content within your store, obviously all within a very, very secure and carefully curated way. But for you to be able to say things like, I need an image that's brand aligned, that shows this, that it can use for this marketing campaign, and it can generate that for you without you having to go about uploading brand guidelines, uploading brand identity, and giving all of that context. There's quite a lot that could happen. I'm not saying I can do that now, by the way, but as in the future, I think there's a lot that could happen there.
Yeah, and for me, the product image one is interesting. And again, I've not tested this yet to see what it can do and how it do, but you often get little tweaks to product images where there's latency in a process because it has to go back to a designer who's currently working on really important campaign assets and therefore can't do it until Thursday, and you want it sooner. And the ability to have something that can do those basic edits within a controlled process, I think is really, really powerful, because designers don't enjoy doing things like that. It's not a fun project to work on, and this is increasingly where Gen AI is going to be AI fits in, is taking away the non-sexy tasks that we all have to do, that we want sped up so we can focus on value add.
And I think threading back to the theme stuff, the front end stuff we talked at the start, hopefully that's also the case for like new content blocks as well. I'm not, as a front-end developer, that's probably marketing saying, "Oh, we need this specific layout of an image block with some text." Probably not the most exciting type of work. So all of that stuff, it just allows businesses could just go faster.
Yeah, and also coming back to that point about like generative layouts, one of the big disconnects you get in store management is the depth of the brief around the functional capability of that content layout and what's being built. Often you get we want a layout that does A, B, and C. So we want a layout that enables us to display blog posts. Developer builds it, rather than, actually, do you know what? I need a layout that's going to help me display blog posts, but I want to be able to set specific tags to only display the posts I want. And I also want to be able to just add specific posts into that layout. You have all of these nuances around what you want, and the ability to use a systemic tool that's able to understand those commands and then adapt and tweak on the fly of that. That's quite an incredibly powerful thing to do.
It is indeed.
But with great power comes great responsibility. To fit a cliche into the episode.
Yeah, important.
Yeah, it is. I think this is the whole thing, is you as vendors are trying to release functionality to help businesses self-serve better and be more efficient. It's then down to all of us who are working on the management side or implementation side to look at what's relevant and how we use it effectively. So I think that's always the word of caution to anyone listening who's on the merchant side, is these tools are there, but you need to test and you need to work out how to use them effectively, especially when you're talking about Gen AI, because you've got to make sure it's fit for purpose. But those are the 4 pillars I really wanted to drill into. Is there anything else, Ben, from the Shopify perspective that you want to flag in terms of new features or areas that you guys have been pushing in the latest editions?
I think, there's a lot in there, and there's a lot in there, and the engineering team and design teams and the whole team who have built out the actual experience of how to look through the product updates have really outdone themselves. It's worth just going and having a look, even just for that, because it's quite a fun website. But I really encourage you to go and have a look and have a play, and make sure you get to the bottom and click drive, just to have a bit of a laugh. But one of the other ones, and this is maybe slightly appreciate this is slightly nerdy, but the next generation developer platform piece, I think, is really quite exciting. There's a lot of I've heard it described as a lot of quality of life improvements for developers on Shopify, for people building Shopify and building on top of Shopify. So loads of stuff in there, that are all just really nice incremental improvements that make it easier to build, easier to go faster, easier to be able to just, I suppose, do your best work faster rather than a whole bunch of feedbacks. So yeah, I'm quite excited. I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot wrapped up in there, and a lot of just things where it's just one line in. It's kind of one line in the edition, and you realize actually that's hours and hours of work that is saved. often.
Yeah, and increasingly, this is where I see the value of modern tech. Yes, experience really important still, never will go away, but operational efficiency, and I mean that across the business, whether that's at the supply chain side, it's in the buying teams, it's in finance, and then in e-com level, it's how the tech operates together effectively to enable you to do things between different parts of systems or even between different tools and execute that at speed. And it's amazing to see, actually, you guys see it at firsthand because you're in a solution engineering function, but the pace it's changed in the last 12 months is quite insane.
Yeah, definitely has. And I think for me, I'm hearing some of our, developers within the business and developers that I know say that, with tooling like Cursor, and now hopefully also increasingly tooling that we're releasing natively on the platform, you can go 10 times faster than you could before.
Yeah. Ben, I've really enjoyed that. I always enjoy chatting to you. And I always enjoy seeing big releases from leading vendors. If anyone wants to reach out and probe about any specific areas and want to look at maybe some particular use cases and how that could apply to them or their clients, what's the best way to reach out?
Sure, really happy. If people want, probably LinkedIn is the best option. Ben Homer on LinkedIn. Probably come up. I don't know how many Ben Homers there are. But if you type Ben Homer Shopify, there are a lot of Bens in Shopify, but not that many Ben Homes. So so that'll find me. Send me a message. I'm always happy to nerd out about Shopify.
Excellent. I hope the people listening have enjoyed it. There's lots of useful information in there. Want to reach out to myself or Paul about anything related to the new functionality and what it means to merchants, we always love to chat about e-com. And then keep your ears peeled for the next episode. Thanks. Have a good rest of the day, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.